Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be reading Book 22, so let's get into it. Book 22, The Battle in the Hall. Now Odysseus stripped off his rags and leapt upon the great doorstone, holding the bow and the quiver full of arrows. He spread the arrows before his feet and called aloud to the company. So the great game is played, and now for another mark, which no man has ever hit. I will see if Apollo will hear my prayer and let me strike it. Then he let fly straight at Antinous. He was holding a large golden goblet in both hands and about to lift it for a drink. Bloodshed was not in his thoughts. Who could imagine at the festal board that one man amongst many, even if he were very strong, would bring certain death upon his own head? The arrow struck him in the throat, and the point ran through the soft neck. He sank to the other side, and the goblet dropped from his hands. In an instant, a thick jet of blood spouted from his nostrils. He pushed the table away with a quick jerk of his feet, spilling all the victuals on the ground, meat and bread in a mess. Then there was a great uproar all through the place as they saw the man fall. They leapt up from their seats in excitement and looked all round at the walls, but there was neither shield nor spear to be seen. They shouted angrily at Odysseus. "You shall pay for shooting a man. No more games for you. Now your death is a safe thing. You have killed the best fellow in Ithaca, and so the vultures shall eat you here." They were just guessing. They never dreamt that he intended to kill the man. Poor fools! They did not know that the cords of death were made fast about them all. But Odysseus said with a frowning face, "Dogs! You thought I would never come back from Troy, so you have been carving up my substance, forcing the women to lie with you, courting my wife before I was dead, not fearing the gods who rule the broad heavens, nor the execration of man which follows you forever. And now the cords of death are made fast about you all." Then pale fear seized upon them. Eurymachus alone dared to answer. "If you are really Ithacan Odysseus come back, what you have said is just and right. Plenty of wild doings here, plenty more on your farms, but there lies the guilty man Antinous, who is answerable for everything. He was the ringleader. A wife was not what he wanted, not so much as something else, which Cronion has not allowed him to do. He wished to murder your son by a secret assault, and to be sole lord and master in this fine country of Ithaca. Now he has his deserts and lies dead. Sir, spare your own people. We will make it all good, all that has been consumed, all the wine that has been drunk in this hall. There shall be a public collection, and each man severely will pay 20 oxen in compensation, and bring gold and bronze to your heart's content. Till that is done, no one could blame you for being angry." Odysseus answered with a frowning face, "Eurymachus, not if you would give me your whole estates, all you now possess, and more if you could get it. Not even so would I stay my hand from killing until every man of you shall have paid in full for his outrageous violence. Now the choice lies before you, fight or flight, if you wish to save your lives. But I do not think any one of you will escape sudden death." As they listened, their knees gave way beneath them, and despair entered their hearts. But Eurymachus once more spoke. "My friends," he cried out, "this man will not hold his hands. He thinks he is invincible. He has bow and arrows, and he will shoot from the doorway until he has killed us all. Let us fight for it. Draw your swords and put up the tables to fend off his arrows. Have at him all together. See if we can push him away from the door and get out and make a hue and cry in the town. Then this man will soon shoot his last shot." With this, he drew a good sharp blade from his side and leapt at Odysseus with a yell. But on the instant, Odysseus let fly an arrow and struck him in the chest by the nipple. The sharp point pierced his liver. Down fell the sword from his hand. He doubled up and fell, sprawling over a table. Victuals and cup went scattering over the floor. He beat his brow on the ground in agony. His feet kicked out and knocked over the chair, and a mist came over his eyes. Then Amphinomos ran straight at Odysseus, sword in hand, to force his way out of the door. But Telemachus was too quick for him. He cast his spear from behind and struck him between the shoulders. The point came out through his chest, and his face crashed on the ground with a thud. Telemachus leapt back and left the spear in the body. He feared that someone might stab him with a sword or strike a blow if he stooped to pull it out. He ran quickly up to his father and said without wasting words, "Father, I'll go at once and fetch you a shield and a couple of spears and a helmet to fit your head, and I'll arm myself and do the same for the drover and the swineherd. We ought to be armed." Odysseus answered, "Run and bring them while I have arrows left, or they may crowd me away from the door." Telemachus went promptly to the store where the arms were kept. He chose 4 shields and 8 spears and 4 good helmets of bronze with horsehair plumes. These he brought back at full speed to his father. First he armed himself, then the 2 men fitted themselves out, and they stood by the indomitable Odysseus. As long as the arrows lasted, Odysseus went on bringing them down one after another. But when the arrows came to an end, and he could shoot no more, he leaned his bow on the doorpost and left it standing. Then slung the stout shield over his shoulders, and lifted the helmet on his head, where the nodding plume seemed to threaten those who saw it. Lastly, he picked up 2 sharp-pointed spears, but there was a door high up in the wall closed by a strong pair of leaves. At the top of the steps the way led through into a passage on the other side. Odysseus had told the swineherd to stand near the door and to keep an eye on it. There was only one way to get there. Now, Agelaos had thought of this, and he called out, "I say, friends, couldn't someone go up to that door and publish the news and set up a hue and cry on the spot? This man would soon shoot his last shot." Melanthios, the goatherd, answered, "Impossible, my lord. The courtyard gate is terrible near, and the passage mouth is dangerous. One strong man could easily hold it against many. But look here, I can fetch you arms from the storehouse. I am sure Odysseus and his son put them away there and nowhere else." Then Melanthios ran up and through the back ways of the house into the storeroom and collected a dozen shields and as many spears and good strong helmets. Back he came quickly with them and distributed them. When Odysseus saw the men arming themselves and poising the spears, he was quite taken aback. He saw a new danger, so he called out to Telemachus without wasting words. "Telemachus, I'm sure one of the women inside is helping these fellows against us, or else it's Melanthios. That's what I think." Telemachus said, "Oh, father, it is my fault. No one else is to blame. I left the door of the storeroom open, and they had a better scout than I was. Eumaeus, man, go and shut that door and see if one of the women is doing this, or Melanthios, Trixon, like father, like son." While they were talking, Melanthios went on a second journey for arms, but Eumaeus saw him this time and said to Odysseus at his elbow, "Look there, my beloved lord and master. The man we guessed at has disappeared again, going to the storehouse. Tell me what to do. Shall I kill him if I can, or bring him here, and then we can pay him out for his evil doings in thy house?" Odysseus answered, "I and my son can manage to hold off the worst they can do here. You two just twist his hands and feet behind him and tie them to a couple of planks, fasten him to a stout rope and haul him up the pillar to the roof beams and leave him there. Let him live and see how he likes it." They listened attentively and did what he told them. To the storeroom they went. The man was inside hunting for weapons, but he did not hear them. They stood one on each side of the door, and as he came carrying a helmet in one hand and an old broad shield in the other, it was one which Laertes had carried in his young days, covered with mold and dirt, which lay there with all the seams bursting. They pounced upon him and caught him, dragged him in by the hair, threw him out on the ground in a great state, twisted his hands and feet behind him, and trussed him up in a very uncomfortable package, according to directions, twisted a rope around him, and hauled him right up the pillar to the roof beams. There you had your revenge, friend Eumeneus, for you said pleasantly, "Now you shall watch all night long, Melanthios, with a soft bed to lie on, as you richly deserve, and you shall not fail to see dawn, when she shall appear through the misty air out of the ocean, upon her golden throne, at the time when you drive your goats down for the gentleman's dinner." There they left him, strung him in that dreadful bundle. The two put on their armor again, shutting the door, and returned to Odysseus. There they all stood, breathing fury, in the doorway within the hall many, and good men too. But now Athena came near to them in the likeness of Mentor. Odysseus was cheered by the sight. He guessed it was Athena, captain of hosts, but he said to her, "Mentor, stand by me and remember your old comrade who always did the right thing by you. We are years mates." Then the others raised a loud shout in the hall, and Agelaos, Damastordes, called out threateningly, "Mentor, don't let Odysseus cajole you to fight on his side against us. If you do, I promise you that when we have settled father and son, we will kill you too. You will pay with your life for what you mean to do. We will wipe out your people if they try to avenge you, and seize your goods indoors and out, and throw them in with the rest. Your sons and daughters shall not live in your house. Your worthy wife shall not walk in the town of Ithaca." Athena grew hot with anger at this and taunted Odysseus with angry words. "You are not the man you were, Odysseus. Where's the courage and strength you showed in that endless conflict, those 9 years of battles for beautiful Helen? Many a man you killed in open fight, and by your device. The great city of Priam was taken. Now you have come back to hearth and home. Why do you grumble to show your strength before a pack of young men in love? Lazy man, stand by my side and see a masterpiece. I will teach you in the face of the enemy what means the gratitude of Mentor, strong arm." But she did not give him overwhelming victory at once, for she wished to prove still further the strength and courage of Odysseus and his doughty son. In the shape of a swallow, she flew up to the smoky rafters and perched there. The invaders were led now by 6 men: Agelaos, Eurynomos, Amphimedon, Demopotolemos, Pysandros, and Polybos. They were the best of those who still lived, and they were fighting for their lives. The rest had been brought down or cowed by the arrows flying thick and fast. Agelaos addressed himself to the whole body. "My friends, now the man will slacken his invincible hands. You see how Mentor went off after a few empty boasts, and left them alone there by the door. Now then, don't all throw your spears at once, but let 6 of us first give a volley, and see if Zeus will grant us to strike down Odysseus and cover ourselves with glory. Never mind the rest once he shall fall." So the 6 volleyed eagerly, but Athena made them all miss. One spear hit the doorpost, one a leaf of the door. A third fell heavily and stuck in the wall. They dodged the others, and Odysseus gave orders in his turn. Now, my friends, when I give the word, let fly at this crowd, who are determined to destroy us after all their unprovoked injuries. At the word, they all took aim and volleyed. Odysseus hit Dimatoplemos, Telemachus, Euryades, the swineherd Elatos, and the drover Pysandros. All fell together and bit the dust, and the others took refuge at the far end of the hall. The four advanced and drew their spears out of their bodies. Another volley came from the crowd in fury, but Athena made most of them miss. One stuck in the doorpost, one in the door, and a third fell heavy against the wall. However, at last Amphimedon grazed the wrist of Telemachus, cutting the skin, and Ctesippus, with his long spear, grazed the shoulder of Eumaeus over the shield, but the spear passed on and fell to the ground. Then Odysseus and his party volleyed again into the throng. Odysseus hit Eurydamas, Telemachus, Amphimedon, the swineherd Polybos. Lastly, the drover hit Ctesippus full in the chest and shouted in triumph, "One for you, old braggart son, with your foul tongue. Learn not to boast like a fool, but leave the word to the gods, for they are mightier far. Here's a little tip for you in return for that hoof which you threw at my master Odysseus when he was begging in the hall." Not bad for a drover of horned cattle. Then they came to close fighting. Odysseus wounded Demastroides with a spear thrust. Telemachus struck Leocritus, running him through the groin and out at the other side, and he fell flat on his face. At that moment, Athena lifted her man-shattering aegis cape and held it against them from on high. They fell into a panic and scampered along the hall like a herd of cows when the darting gadfly attacks them and scatters them in the long days of springtime. The four were after them like vultures that swoop down out of the mountains with carving beaks and hooked claws on a flock of birds. Hide as they will, flying low under the clouds, the vultures are on them, a pounce and a kill. There is no help and no refuge, and the onlookers think it fine sport. So these four rushed upon their enemies, spearing men right and left, to every blow a dreadful groan, and the ground ran with blood. But Leodes ran up to Odysseus and threw his arms round his knees, begging for his life in plain words without ceremony. "Spare me, Odysseus, I pray. Have mercy upon me. I declare that I never meddled with the women in this house, by word or deed. No, I tried to stop the others when they did anything of that sort, but they would not listen to me and keep their hands from evil, and so their own recklessness has brought them to a dreadful end. But I am only their diviner. I have done nothing, and I am to die, because there is no gratitude in the world for good deeds done." Odysseus said to him, frowning, "If you call yourself their diviner, you must have prayed often enough that I might never be so happy as to return home, that my beloved wife might go with you and bear your children. Therefore, you shall not escape the terror of death." He picked up the sword, which Agelaus had dropped when he was struck down, and drove it through the man's throat. Even while he was speaking, his head rolled in the dust. But the minstrel had escaped death so far. This was Phemios Terpiades, the tuneful son of harmony, as his name denotes, but he had been dragged in by culpulations to sing for the rioting crew. He was standing close to the back door, harp in hand, hesitating whether to run out of the hall and take refuge at the great altar of Zeus built in the courtyard, where both Laertes and Odysseus used to sacrifice, or to run up and clasp the knees of Odysseus Laertes' son. He thought it better to throw himself on the mercy of Odysseus, so he set down his harp on the ground between the mixing bowl and the seat of state, and running quickly, clasped the master's knees and besought him in plain and simple words. "Spare me, Odysseus, I pray. Have mercy upon me. You will be sorry afterwards if you kill a singer like me, one who can sing before God and man. I am self-taught, but God has planted all manner of songs in my mind. I am fit to sing before you as before God. Then do not be eager to cut my throat. Your own son Telemachus can tell you that no will of my own made me come into his house, no desire for gain. I had to sing to these men at supper because they were too many for me, and too strong because they compelled me." Telemachus was close by his father and heard this. He said at once, "Spare him, father. He is innocent. Don't strike him. And let us spare Medon the marshal, who used to look after me here when I was a little boy, unless Philoetios or the swineherd has killed him, or he may have come in your way as you went raging through the hall." Medon heard him. He was there, smart lad, huddled under a chair, rolled up in a new flayed cowhide, where he had crawled to escape if he could. Now he was out with one leap from under that chair, threw off the hide, dashed up to Telemachus, grasped his knees, cried out simply, "Here I am, my dear. Spare me, sir. Tell the master not to hurt me with that sharp sword. He's almighty now, and those brutes, no wonder I was angry with them, devouring his goods in his own house, and thought nothing of thee, like the fools they were." Odysseus smiled and said, Cheer up, my son. Cheer up. My son has saved your life, so you shall know and tell other men that doing well is far better than doing ill. Now then, you two had better go out of the carnage into the yard, and stay there until I have finished what is left for me to do in this house." They both went out and sat down by the altar of Zeus, gazing about them and every moment expecting death. Odysseus looked carefully in every part of the hall, in case anyone were still alive and hiding himself from death, but he saw them all lying in heaps amid blood and dust. They were like a great haul of fishes which the fishermen have drawn into a bay with a wide net. They lie on the sand panting for the salt water, while the blazing sun takes away their life. Then at last Odysseus said to Telemachus, "Go and call nurse Euryclea. I have something I want to tell her." Telemachus went to the women's room and, shaking the door, called Euryclea. "Wake up now, grandam wife. Wake up, keeper of all the women in this great house. Come this way, my father calls you. He has something which he wants to tell you." She had no notion what he meant, but she opened the door and followed him. There she found Odysseus, smothered in blood and filth, cheeks and chest, from head to foot, with a terrible look on his face, like a lion which has just chawed up a bullock in the farmyard. When she saw the piles of dead bodies and streams of blood, she stretched her body for the women's alleluia at this great victory. Alleluia at this great victory. But Odysseus checked her and stopped it not without difficulty, as he said plainly, "Keep your joy in your heart, woman. Quiet now. No cries of triumph. It is not decent to boast over slain men. These have been brought low by God's decree and their own wicked deeds. They respected none of those who walked on the earth, neither good men nor bad. Therefore, their recklessness has brought them to a dreadful end. Now, tell over the names of the women in this house, and say which disgrace me and which are innocent." The old nurse answered, "Ay, my love, I'll tell thee the truth of it. 50 women there are in this house. We have taught 'em all their work, to card wool and to put up with what a slave must bear. A dozen of 'em are shameless hussies, and pay no respect to me or my lady herself. The young master has but now grown up, and the mistress wouldn't let him give orders to the women. But I'll just go up the stairs and tell her the news. She's having a bit of sleep, thank God." Odysseus answered, "Don't wake her yet. Tell all the women to come here who have been disgracing themselves." Then the old woman went out of the hall to summon the women at once. He called Telemachus and the drover and swineherd, and told them plainly what they had to do. "The first thing is to carry out these bodies and tell the women to help you. Then wipe clean all the chairs and tables with sponge and water. When you have put the place in order, drive out the women between the domed house and the courtyard wall, and run your sword through them. Kill them all, and teach them to forget their secret bussing and cuddling with these brave gallants." The women now came in with dreadful wailing and floods of tears. First, they had to carry out the dead bodies and lay them along the courtyard wall, packed close together under the gallery. Odysseus gave them directions and let them waste no time. They had to obey. Then they cleaned up the tables and seats with sponges and water. Telemachus and the two men scraped over the floor with shovels, and the women cleared out the scrapings. When the great hall was quite in order, they drove the women outside and cooped them up in a narrow space between the domed house and the wall so that they could not get out. Telemachus had been thinking, and now he said, "I should not care to give a clean death to these women, who have heaped insults on my head and upon my mother, and slept by the side of those who pretended to be her hand." So he rigged up a ship's hawser, fastening one end to a tall pillar, and throwing the other round the dome. A noose was looped around the neck of each, and he pulled it up tight so that their feet would not touch the ground. They were strung up with their heads in a row. A pitiable death to die. No lover's bed indeed. They looked like a lot of thrushes of doves caught in a net when they come to roost in the bushes. Their feet jerked for a little while, but not long. Melanthios was brought out by the forehall and courtyard. His nose and ears and cods were cut off and thrown to the dogs to eat raw. Then hands and feet were cut off to vent their fury. The work was done. They washed their hands and feet and went into the great house. Then Odysseus called his nurse Euryclea and said, "Bring sulphur and fire to cleanse the hall and sweeten the air. Then request Penelope to come here with her waiting women, and tell all the other women in the house to come." Nurse Euryclea answered, "Aye, aye, my love. There's naught amiss with that, but let me fetch thee some clean clothes. Don't stand there with that bundle of rags on thy broad shoulders. That would be a real shame." Odysseus said, "First of all, get the fire lighted." The nurse obediently brought fire and sulphur, and Odysseus smoked the hall well with it, and the forehall and the courtyard. Then the old woman went into the house to tell the women to make haste and come. And they came from their quarters, torch in hand. How they crowded about Odysseus, throwing their arms around him and giving him welcome and kissing his head and shoulders and holding his hands. He longed to relieve his feelings with tears, for in his heart he knew them all. That's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week with Book 23.